Okay, Russ, I'm going to start this podcast with some happy news.
Oh.
On August 5th, 2026, the French-American composer Betsy Jolas turned 100 years old. She's still alive and still working, too.
Amazing.
Yeah, we talked about her music on episode 108, The Orchestrated Woman, on March 27th, 2023, when we talked about the album Poétesse Symphonique, released on the La Dolce Volta label. One of her works was on that album, and we at Adult Music would like to wish her a happy 100th birthday.
Yeah, happy birthday.
To Betsy Jolas. Yeah, amazing.
I think in the U.S. you get a letter from the president if you make it to 100, too.
Really? And she's a composer, too. That'd be great.
Well, one of the things I'm happy to see, as we've done this for 5 years now, is that we see many cases of music keeping people young.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Yeah, in classical and jazz, and that's great. A lot of people remaining active and creative way up into the later years.
Yeah, I think that's really important, especially in jazz. This happens in classical music, too, where you're really taking younger musicians on the road and you're kind of showing them the ropes and stuff like that. Right. I think Ahmad Jamal was doing that at the end of his life, and Stefan Grappelli long ago. I remember seeing him with a bunch of young musicians.
When you become a mentor, it ensures that you're still needed, which I think is something that we need in life. You have to be needed by other people.
Yeah, not only that, you have a lot to impart because these guys,
right?
Yeah, they don't really know the history or things like that. You can kind of impart those things to them.
Well, I hope adult music keeps us young or younger.
I don't know that it's doing that.
Yeah, I don't know.
It may be prematurely aging us because it's a lot of work. We need to...
All this sitting around and listening to music, too.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, it's got to be healthy for your brain to be listening to music.
I think so.
You know?
Yeah. Anyway, we'll keep doing it as long as we can. Here at Adult Music, the podcast with the music for the mature mind. And this week is episode 270. I'm your co-host, Russ.
I'm your co-host, Mike. And I like the way you went into that. That was really slick.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I was ready. We don't really have any other good news or bad news. No deaths to report this week.
Yeah, that's good.
So we're going to get into the music right away. As always, in the episode description, you'll find links to Spotify, Apple Music, and Amazon Music for all of the recordings we're going to discuss. And at the top of the description, there's a link to the full episode playlist where you can get all the music in one place on Deezer, CD Quality's streaming music from France. Now, if you can't see the full description or if the recording list and links are hard to access on your app, you can always come over and check us out on our host site. That's Podbean, PODBEAN.com. Everything is easy to follow there. If you enjoy the podcast, please follow or subscribe wherever you like listening to us, and tell a music-loving friend. Help us grow our audience. If you take a moment to give us a ranking or write a short review, that also helps us get listed in the music category recommendations, and that helps us grow our audience as well. Come and follow us on our Facebook page as well to get extra info and more new releases when they come out. You can leave a message or comment there as well. We're over on X too at Adult Music Pod. I post links to the new episodes there. And if you'd like to contact us directly with any comments or questions, we'd love to hear from you. Our email address is adultmusicpodcast, all one word, @gmail.com. We're going to play music sample clips as usual as part of our discussion. And this is our fair use disclaimer. Music sample clips are for commentary and educational purposes. We recommend that listeners listen to the complete recordings, all of which are available on streaming services in the links provided. And we also suggest that if you enjoy the music, you consider purchasing the CDs or high-quality downloads to support the artists. Well, we start out in Baroque a lot recently.
Yeah, we've been getting those Baroque recordings.
Yeah, and sometimes we start out with Bach, but we're going to start out before Bach this time.
Yeah, we are. How about that?
Yeah.
This is a pretty interesting period, really. I really like the music that came before Bach. Now, way before Bach, at the beginning of the Baroque era, were what they call the Italian masters, and Monteverdi and that lot, as it were. And then in between those guys and Bach, there were still other composers as music was building up in Germany. So our first album tonight is called the Leipzig Collegium Musicum, Volume 1. There's going to be more of these.
Nice.
This one's called Music Before Bach. Now, I imagine the future ones are going to include Bach. This is performed by the Neues Bachisches Collegium Musicum. They really could have thought of a name that non-Germans can say.
Yeah, really.
This, as directed by Reinhard Goebel, released on the Pentatone label on July 31st. Okay, first of all, we need to talk about the title of the album. What is a Musicum Collegium? Well, it's an assembly of certain persons versed in music who come together on set days and in set places under the supervision of a director for their own practice in both vocal and instrumental music, performing musical pieces. So basically, they're an orchestra, but it's kind of like a more informal, I guess, than an orchestra, although you have a schedule and things like that. Such collegia may be found in many places. In Leipzig, above all others, the Bachisches Collegium Musicum is renowned. This society appeared in 1737. By 1743, the numerous music-making societies of Leipzig had somewhat diminished and were standing on the threshold of what would be the founding of the Great Concert, a development that led more or less straight to the establishment of the Gewandhaus Orchestra. And the history of the Collegium Musicum is difficult to lay out, being that the only consistent quality were the quarrels between the musicians in the various collegia. The booklet notes details some specifics of this complicated story, and it's an interesting read. If you're interested in the period, I'd send you to that, please. You can download that online. The ensemble on this album, the Neues Bachisches Collegium Musicum, is a new group created in the spirit of the Bachisches Collegium Musicum of the early 1700s. Man, this is like complicated and tongue-twisting at the same time. Now, this particular program we're going to hear tonight, we're going to sample tonight, Volume 1 in a projected series, focuses on music that could have been performed by the various collegia between 1700 and 1720. Now, Bach was composing by 1720, but these would be his younger years. He was born in 1685, as we all remember. I guess we music people remember. I just know their years, I guess, from seeing them all the time. The first work on this album, tracks 1 through 4, is by Johann Beer.
Good name.
Spelled beer, yeah. Mm-hmm. Kind of makes me thirsty, just thinking about that. All right, he lived 1655 to 1700, so he's before Bach, really. He died when Bach was 15. This is his overture for strings in basso continuo in D major. The first movement, overture. This has a very smooth, sleek string sound from the Collegium Musicum. Now, the notes say that composers of the time were leery of foreign influences in Germany, as composers tried to develop a national style. But this is clearly a French overture, or French-inspired. It's got that dun-da-dun kind of rhythm at the beginning, and then it goes into a fugue. And it was there to stay throughout the Baroque era, the French overture was. There's a fugue then, and as in so many Bach works, we hear that. Now, let's hear the fugue in this, because it's pretty cheerful, and it really kind of drew me into this work a little bit. We're not going to go into that cadence. He avoided the cadence to go back into the French overture part. Very clever, Herr Beer. So this is not as bubbly as the Bach fugues and those of other composers can be, but it is pretty bubbly, I would say. Kind of sounds very celebratory. Reminds me a little bit of... Actually, you know what it reminds me of? You know that in the Christmas Carol when Fezziwig has that big party and young Ebenezer Scrooge is there, like dancing with his girl? I kind of imagine the music was... this lively, if not this complex. Right. Anyway, so there you go.
I wanted to mention, too, I looked up Beer a bit, and it seems he was equally known as a writer, as a composer, and he died in a hunting accident. So,
did they specify the details of the hunting accident? Did he get shot or something?
No, they didn't. I assume so, but...
Well, it could have been like an animal attacked him, too. We don't really
possible.
know.
Mm.
Yeah. Or he fell in a ditch or... in a ravine or something, who knows? All right, anyway, the French overture makes a brief reappearance, followed by the fugue subject again to end this only 3-minute movement. which actually ends with the French overture rhythm and theme again. Okay, so later you wouldn't hear the French overture again once we got to Bach, but these are early days, so composers were doing different things, which is nice. I kind of like that. So it's important to listen to these not so famous composers because you get more of an idea of what the style was around the great composers and what they changed about it, you know. Okay, track 2, the second movement, Bourrée. These, of course, are dances from the period. This sounds like a stylized ballroom dance of the period, in fact. It's pretty square phrased, but has plenty of elegance. And if you're looking for elegance, you want to go back to the Baroque and the classical era. They had it in spades. The Collegium Musicum give it a light, transparent tone. The rhythm glides. Track 3, the third movement, aria. This movement has a pretty vigorous rhythm for an aria, which kind of implies a song. The melody itself is taken pretty quickly. Let's hear it. All right, there we go. A nice cadence to get out of that. And then the music just continues on without a pause. Really great. Track 4, the fourth movement, Minuet, and then it moves into Polonaise 1 and 2, so you get 3 dances in a single movement. Again, this is pretty straightforward ballroom music for the period. It's got an attractive theme and contains the requisite elegant quality. At 2 minutes and 34 seconds, the theme switches to the first of the Polonaises again. Well formed, but nothing special here. It's pretty repetitive, indicating that it was specifically written to be danced to. The second Polonaise is ensconced within the first, as a trio often is with a minuet. The first Polonaise repeats afterwards. I found this movement to be very repetitive in its phrasing and unsurprising, though it's well formed and well performed. Tracks 5 through 10, we move on to the music of Johann David Heineken.
From beer to Heineken.
Yeah, well, it's Heineken, not with a K, like the beer, so it's a little different. He spells his name with a CH where the K is in the beer. He lived 1683 to 1729. I'm getting a little further down the line now. This is his overture for 2 oboes, strings, and basso continuo in G major S205. Now, the oboes are played by Susanne Vettermann and Amanda Taurina. The fifth track, first movement, overture. Now, the oboes are heard within the texture right away. This starts slowly, as a French overture does. There's only a trace of the dotted rhythm when it starts, but that straightens into more straightforwardly even patterns. The faster fugue starts at 1 minute and 45 seconds, and I loved the solo sections the oboes are given here, so I'm going to go right to the fugue again. Now, if you love a French overture, you're going to have to listen to this on your own. Yeah, gorgeous and beautiful flow, too, from the Neues Bachisches Musicum Collegium, who from now on will be referred to as the Collegium, because I just can't say all that. All right, so the winds are, in fact, the most attractive element of this solo, because they're just such a unique tone within that texture. It's really great. They'll often come in en masse without the strings and change the entire timbre for sections. The positive energy is kept up throughout the fugue. Track 6, the second movement, is an air. It's another upbeat air with some lift to the chirpy rhythm. Again, the presence of the oboes adds a lot of interest to the overall sound. Track 7, the third movement, Bourrée, followed by a trio. The Bourrée has a livelier quality than we'd usually expect from this dance. It sounds vigorous, more so than the air, but in the same mood, more or less. At the 59-second mark, the winds play the trio. Again, this is an appealing sound, so I have to sample this. I was a little worried they wouldn't get out of that opening pattern there. They played it so many times. By the way, if you listen to that sample again, keep an ear out for the bassoon, which is the low instrument, the bass instrument in that. It's playing a really interesting line. It's got a great sound to it. People who don't listen to a lot of music anyway don't usually listen to the bass instruments, and often they're doing, especially in Baroque music, they're doing really interesting things. Track 8, the fourth movement, Air. This is a slow, melting air led by strings throughout. The oboe makes no appearance at all. It's pretty straightforward, driven by its melody. Track 9, the fifth movement, Rigodon, followed by Trio. Now, the Rigodon is a French dance, and it sounds vigorous in its rhythm here and features the oboes and other winds in the mix, but it's primarily led by strings. Once again, the winds are in the trio, which starts at the 1-minute mark. Now, I know we already heard an example of this, but I just like the sound so much, I've got to play this one too. I also like the detail of the voices in their different timbres. Once again, listen for the bassoon as well as all the high instruments that you'll hear pretty easily. Okay, this is a pretty simple sound, but I just love the whole timbre of it.
Yeah.
Track 10, the sixth and final movement, Air Vist. A bubbly rhythm is given to this brief air. There's a low wind-led rhythm that propels the piece as the strings wind into melodies at the top. A new section starts at about the 35-second mark and unwinds until the piece reaches its end. Tracks 11 through 13, a little-known composer that appears every once in a while, Johann Friedrich Fasch, F-A-S-C-H. 1688 to 1758, concerto for recorder, strings, and basso continuo in F major. And of course, my eyes lit up when I saw we were going to have a recorder concerto. I really like the sound of this instrument. Max Vollbers is the recorder player. What would you call him? A recordist? I don't know. Anyway, track 11, the first movement is an allegro. The timbre of the recorder here is bold and upfront. It's got an appealing cuckoo-like quality to its tone. Yeah, the cuckoo was really big in music of the time. All right.
Yeah, nice tone.
Yeah, I thought so too. Now, I remember when we were kids, we all played like plastic recorders, right? Yeah. They never sounded this beautiful. This is obviously a really nice wooden recorder. It's got that woody timbre to it. Now, soloist Max Vollbers gets some virtuosic figures between his thematic sections. I enjoyed his stylish playing throughout. He makes this otherwise straightforward movement work to appealing effect, especially with his rapid repeated notes around the 2-minute and 20-second mark. Track 12, the second movement, Largo, has a slow quarter-note ticking quality reminiscent of Vivaldi. The recorder plays arabesque-like material above it, providing the contrast with the sturdier, more determined-sounding strings. And track 13 is the third and final movement, Allegro Assai. A 6/8 rhythm with a wide sweep to it sets the ground for the recorder to impressively solo over. I want to get some of Fulber's impressive technique into this sample, so let's hear his first solo section. All right, I let that sample go on for a bit because I really wanted to hear some more of that recorder. The movement keeps up its exuberance for its entire 3 minutes and leaves the listener in high spirits. I'm feeling great just hearing that sample. Tracks 14 through 17, Georg Melchior Hoffmann, 1679 to 1715. Concerto for horn, 2 oboes, strings, and basso continuo in E-flat major. Now, the horn player, this is the French horn, is played by Clemens Roger. That's an O with an umlaut over it, which is but I don't know, it's kind of hard to say that word. Roger. Amanda Taurina and Susanne Vettermann again play the oboes. Track 14 is the first movement, Adagio e Staccato. The sound of the period horn at the beginning is impressively wide toned, and I like the way the tone expands out of the instrument. It kind of sounds like there's some kind of membrane stretched over the bell, and it's sort of like blowing a bubble out of the out of the instrument, because it doesn't like pop. You know, the tone is very contained somehow. See if you can hear what I'm talking about. I'm just kind of trying to come up with some good metaphor here. All right, so we didn't hear the oboes yet, but they're coming up. This movement is brief and meditative, and it caught my attention. Track 15, the second movement, Allegro ma non presto. The second movement moves at a leisurely allegro, perhaps to allow the horn to keep up. It sounds great here, again, as far as its tone goes. Okay, we're giving the horn a lot of airtime here. We haven't heard the oboes yet. Now, the phrasing here is pleasant. The movement sounds like it could gain in character at a faster tempo. But with the horn's tone here, I'm happy with it the way it is. Track 16, the third movement, Adagio. Strings begin the Adagio at a fairly quick pace for this tempo marking. An oboe carries the melody for part of the opening theme. And this 1 minute and 26-second movement has no horn in it at all, but I mean, it's about time the oboes get a little chance here. I guess he needed a rest after that second movement. Anyway, the oboe takes on the melodic duties along with the strings. There's an open cadence at the end, leading to track 17, the fourth and final movement, Menuet and Trio. The horn is back for this 3/4 dance movement. It sounds like something from Handel's Water Music here, and flows over widely spaced 3/4 wavelets. The trio section features winds and lightens the tone of the movement considerably. At 2 minutes and 54 seconds, the horn is back for the return of the Menuet. Tracks 18 through 20, these are really generously packed albums, aren't they? There's a lot of music on these. 18 through 20, Christoph Graupner, 1683 to 1760, Concerto for Recorder, Strings, and Basso Continuo in F major, GWV 323. Max Fulbers is back as the recorder player. Track 18 is the first movement Allegro, scurrying strings with the second half of the phrase played in a more spacious rhythm. The theme is involved here, and the recorder comes in on a high note. And once the figuration starts, Max Fulbers gets his familiar hooty sound. He's kind of like, he's kind of owl-like, I guess. Let's listen. All right, I was wondering when he was going to come out of that really amazingly flowing solo. He has a great sense of flow to his phrasing. There's some interesting subtle rhythm changes to triplets in the recorder line around the 2-minute mark. The movement settles into its pleasant, chirpy mood once the recorder moves back to figuration on the theme. Track 19 is the second movement Andante. The movement starts pizzicato with arpeggiated patterns as the recorder plays a melody above it. Yeah, really pretty texture. This movement has a charming sound all the way through. It's sad that it's only 1 minute and 33 seconds. It doesn't resolve at the end, but leads into the cheerful third movement, track 20, Allegro. This starts with a string theme, full of sunny spirits. The recorder plays a dancing theme on its entry, and the movement continues in this mood to the end. Tracks 21 to 23, Georg Philipp Telemann, a composer we featured often on the Adult Music Podcast, and we've really come to like a lot more than I did before we started doing the podcast, I have to say. Doing this podcast has really turned me on more to this composer. Anyway, he was a contemporary of Bach. He lived 1681 to 1767, so he was born before Bach and lived until after Bach died, which is, I guess, interesting and sad in a way. Anyway, Concerto for 3 oboes, 3 violins, and Basso Continuo in B-flat major. This guy could write for any combination of instruments. TWV 44:43 in the catalog. This features Suzanne Vettermann, Amanda Taurina, and Immaculada Veses on oboes, Elisabeth Dingstad, Karl Heinrich Niebuhr, and Tobias Haupt on violin. Track 21, the first movement, Allegro. There's an interesting hocketing effect. Hocketing means like going from different sides of the orchestra, but this would also mean from one speaker to the other on your stereo. This kind of hocketing effect between strings and winds for the opening of the movement. Listen to this in headphones. It'll be really cool. The interplay is extended throughout the false approaches to the cadence. right, and that theme just keeps going. Just like listening to Dark Side of the Moon, you know, when you were younger with the instruments ponging back and forth between the headphones. The movement continues in this rhythm without a change, the violins and oboes continuously playing off each other to the end. Track 22, the second movement, Largo. The oboes play harmonized rising lines that the violins join in with. This texture continues until a violin comes in at around the 1 minute and 10 second mark to take over the melodic playing. Oboes then feature at around the 1 minute and 40 second mark in harmonized form with pulsing chords. The movement ends on an open cadence, inviting the final movement to resolve it. That's track 23, the final track on the album. Third movement, Allegro. The rhythm here is a fast 3/4 dance. Actually, that sounds more like a 4/4 with triplets in it, maybe. Oboes and violins trade lines during their group solo interactions. At 1 minute and 33 seconds, there's a section change with different harmony but the same exuberant rhythm. A cadence is reached at 2 minutes and 50 seconds, and the music continues on into a B section after that. The music heads to an exuberant ending, as does the album with it. Now, this very interesting series is off to a good start with composers we generally don't hear on Baroque recordings. I liked both the variety of instrumental combinations on the program and the variety of composers featured. All of them have different styles within the Baroque idiom. Even the Telemann work was unfamiliar, though the composer is not. Indeed, he composed so many works that most of them are still unfamiliar. My favorite works were the 2 recorder concertos, primarily because I love the sound of the instrument, and Max Folber's membrane-like bubble of a tone made this more interesting for me. You know what it was like? It's kind of like, you know, when you're blowing bubbles when you're a kid, and you're kind of blowing the bubble, but you're not blowing hard enough for the bubble to come off the stick. That's kind of what the tone kind of sounded like. It was like contained on the surface of the bell of the instrument. That's kind of what I'm getting at here. I also like Clemens Roger's equally like non-bubble releasing tone on the horn in Hoffmann's Horn Concerto. With his sound, he makes up for any slowing in tempo required for him to produce it. This is an album with some Baroque era variety to it. It's an instantly enjoyable listen, and the variety holds the listener's interest.
Since we know Bach and Telemann, it can be, as the booklet notes say, that the better is the enemy of the good. In any case, the music here is all enjoyable, and the program notes are informative for getting a musical picture of what was happening at the time. The Beer overture for strings and basso continuo was pleasant, but the later dances weren't that interesting. Fun to listen to in any case. The Heineken work was more fun, with busy lines and constantly moving oboes. I really enjoyed the bassoon parts sticking out too. Fash I've heard before, and Max Folber's recorder tone was very pleasing. The Hoffmann stood out for the horn parts and the neat combination with 2 oboes. Graupner seems to have had a huge musical output and is being rediscovered recently. I thought his work was a step up in complexity, and I'm really interested to hear more of his compositions. And Telemann, as we've come to experience on the podcast, composed so much that we'll probably keep finding works that we've never heard before as we go on. And they're always really enjoyable, and as you mentioned, for different combinations of instruments. So, yeah, it was an interesting recording and a little history lesson as well.
Yeah, he's one of those composers, you kind of wonder how he was able to even produce so much music, you know? I don't know. He must have never gone outside. Anyway, next we have a rarity on the Adult Music Podcast, an opera, and a romantic opera at that, actually really a Verismo opera. This is Umberto Giordano's recently re-performed first opera, Marina. Now, Giordano lived 1867 to 1948, so he outlived Puccini. He was from that era, and Marina was his first opera. Let me go through the artists on this recording. This is Eleonora Buratto is the soprano playing Marina. Then Freddie De Tommaso, who you've heard before on the Adult Music Podcast, is the tenor. He is Giorgio Lascari. I'll explain who these characters are later. Mihai Damian is the baritone playing Lambro, and Nicolas Mogg, baritone playing Daniele. We also hear the Coro della Fondazione Teatro Petruzzelli. Boy, they really choose long names in Italy too, don't they? Marco Medved is the chorus master, and the Orchestra I Pomeriggi Musicali di Milano, conducted by Vincenzo Milletarì. It's got an accent on the I. All right, now Marina was Umberto Giordano's first opera. He's most famous for the operas Andrea Chenier, which you may have heard of, Fedora, and Siberia, which we don't really know outside of Italy. Giordano was a student of composition at the Conservatory of Naples, barely in his 20s, when he composed Marina and entered it into an opera competition organized by the publishing firm Sonzogno in 1888. The winner of the competition would turn out to be Pietro Mascagni for his still very famous opera Cavalleria Rusticana. And Giordano didn't get a top 3 place, but he was included in the next 9 entries deemed worthy of special mention in a competition in which 73 operas had been entered. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Marina did manage to bring Giordano to the attention of a major publisher and led to a commission from Sonzogno, that's the publisher. The result was an opera called Malavita, or A Bad Life, or An Evil Life, which made it to the stage and received considerable acclaim. Some of the music from Marina was incorporated into Malavita, which was later revised and renamed Il Voto. Marina was incredibly first heard on 12 February 2026, that's this year, at Teatro dal Verme in Milan. That's the first time it was ever performed, or performed professionally anyway. Giordano never pursued any plans for production. He just entered it into the competition, didn't win, and that was the end of it. Well, not really. He did get other commissions after that. Marina is verista in style, so in other words, it's not going for the romantic, kind of crazy Verdi kind of situations where someone is killed and then they sing, that sort of thing. It's going for something closer to real life. An opera in which reckless, violent emotions rule and events unfold with brutal suddenness. This is a big vogue in Italy, and a lot of Puccini's operas are like this too. The action takes place in Montenegro during a conflict with Serbia. The characters represent the two opposing factions. Marina, her brother Daniele, and her suitor, Lambro, are Montenegrin, and Giorgio is a Serb. So you can think Montagues and Capulets, Romeo and Juliet, to help you out with this. Against the backdrop of armed conflict, the care given to Giorgio by Marina, and the mutual infatuation experienced by them, in a Romeo and Juliet sort of way, combined to act as a trigger for an explosion of violence from Lambro, the suitor. To him and to Marina's brother Daniele, nothing matters more than loyalty to one's homeland. Marina is the only prominent character in the opera. She's grown up motherless and unhappy, as has the Serb Giorgio. Her existence as a woman in a patriarchal family of implacable ideals has extinguished any spark of inner life she might have had, and when Giorgio appears, that spark is unexpectedly rekindled, and her initial compassion for a wounded soldier blossoms into love. And it doesn't take long for this to happen, because this is a short opera. Giorgio is painted with a sense of melancholy in his tenor voice setting, while the two baritones, Daniele and Lambro, are painted in a negative light. I guess they're kind of sinister sounding. Anyway, this opera is 52 minutes long on the recording, and it took me 2 hours to do because things happened so fast I had to keep stopping the recording to write about it and to pull out samples. So I'd rather just listen to this straight through. Anyway, tracks 1 through 16 are part 1 of the opera. It's a 2-part opera. Track 1 is the Introduzione Son là sull'altura, and this is by an offstage chorus. The brass fanfares and military drum rolls start the piece. It's got an ebullient Italian opera type of rhythm and some predictably catchy phrases in the themes. Really, if you've heard Italian opera before from Verdi or Puccini, you've heard sort of orchestration, rhythms, and music really like this. Let's hear it. All right, so you hear all these really catchy like tunes and rhythms, and then some tension building once the chorus comes in. Track 2, we get to scene 1, Ha fin la pugna, so the battle has ended. The first solo voice we hear is Buratto's as Marina, the title character. The music she's given is warm and romantic, all strings. We're supposed to like her right away. Let's hear if Buratto is able to achieve this quality. Okay, so she gets a few early high notes there, and that means that the Italian audience is going to love the singer, so they're going to love the character too, because she sounds really strong and kind of like she knows what she's about, and that's a good, solid opera character. In this particular track, she's very much a patriot. She's for the Montenegrins and her brother and her suitor. Track 3, scene 1, aria O qual selvaggia ebbrezza, sung by Marina. The vocal line warms a bit here, though Marina sings of the hardness of her heart. It's here that she sings that she's unhappy and alone. There's some beautiful shading of tone in Buratto's voice here, so she doesn't just ring out. She has a lot of qualities to her vocal timbre. She's given a lot to express in the few minutes that these tracks take. Let's hear a little bit of this. Yeah, she sounds really great on those high notes, very steady, and that's what you're looking for in an opera singer. She finishes by saying she wishes she had not been born a woman. This is 1880s, okay? Really amazing. We can already hear that Buratto is suitably heroic and tender by turns, expressing everything required of this role. Great high notes floated to end this aria, too. Track 4 is scene 2. It's a duet called Soccorso, Asilo, and then Chi va là. And this is where Freddie de Tommaso, as Giorgio, the Serb, first appears. At first, Marina sees him as an enemy and rushes to attack him with a dagger. I like de Tommaso's heroic, clean-sounding tenor. He's got a bit of that Italian spinto character to him. He says he's wounded, and Marina offers him aid. That's a pretty quick change. I like the lively string theme as Marina examines his wounds, and she dresses them. Scene 5, La mia ferita, and then Tolto ai materni baci. De Tommaso gets an extended vocal here, and we have to sample him. He's an up-and-coming star Italian singer. Let's hear this vocal turn. Okay, so Italians were very theatrical, especially in this period. You know, think about Verdi's operas. So we're hearing a lot of drama in the music. Now, Giorgio explains himself, saying he's lived out his life in the army, deprived of his mother's kisses at birth. Marina responds with a consoling melody, saying her father, like Giorgio's, was killed in the war. The music gradually sweetens, especially when Giorgio sings of how Marina's beauty makes him dream of angels on earth. Oh, this is such an Italian line. Okay, even Marcello Mastroianni used it in La Dolce Vita, the movie. Anyway, there's some attractive orchestration in this entire section by Giordani. He's also got away with a catchy melody, as so many Italian opera composers do. And he was very successful in his life, I should mention. We don't really hear too many of his operas today, but he was one of the big names in Italian opera during his lifetime. Scene 6, Che sei fra questi biechi monti. This is a duet between Giorgio and Marina, continuing from the previous track. Now here, Giorgio begins an extended aria. The aria suits De Tommaso's tone perfectly. It's tender and lyrical. This is what we like to hear from Italian tenors. Let's listen to it.
Chi sei fra questi viechi monti che di giganti
All right, a catchy aria, too. Some good melodies in there. He's got great ringing high notes, too. We didn't hear them in that sample, though. Both De Tommaso and Buratto get a chance to show some range here. Track 7, Va via, go away, and then Su, avanti, svida il destin. This is by the internal chorus and Giorgio and Marina. Narrative occurs on this track with the Montenegrin troops returning after the battle. Marina confesses she's the leader's sister, and Giorgio boldly tells her to hand him over. She refuses, and Giorgio asks if she thinks he's a coward enough to agree to be hidden. Oh, these real men in Serbia and Montenegro. She gets her way, though, and Giorgio hides. Okay? I would hide. I wouldn't even complain. Anyway, we go on to scene 3 on track 8, Non ci ascoltavi tu. This is sung by Daniele and Marina. Daniele is Marina's brother. And then A Marina with the chorus and Marina. Now, Nicholas Mogg makes his first appearance as Daniele, Marina's brother here. His troops greet Marina in this brief track. We'll hear him later. Track 9, A te Lambro l'amico presento. Now, Lambro is now in the story. He makes a brief appearance here in this brief track as Daniele relates that Lambro has killed the man responsible for their father's death. I'm going to do a spoiler here and say he hasn't actually killed the man. We'll get to that later. Track 10, Qui del vino. They're asking for wine here. Cheerful music emerges as they celebrate. The chorus, led by Daniele, acts as a brindisi, or like a toasting song. It's very traditional sounding. Track 11, Che pria l'animo su si plachi lascia. Here, Damian gets a longer solo vocal asking Marina to marry him. That's Lambro. And she hesitates, and her brother Daniele tries to push her into it. Then she responds she'll give her answer tomorrow. Let's hear a little bit of Mihai Damian here as Lambro. Whenever you hear a woman singing, that's always Marina, because she's the only woman in the opera. Okay. Track 12, Canzone Montenegrina in Guardia o Serbia Tiranna, sung by Lambro and Daniele. So Lambro then sings the defiant song of Montenegro, how they're going to beat the Serbians. And he's answered by Daniele and the chorus. Let's hear a little bit of this. This is Mihai Damian.
laggiù mi vedi tu. Sto avanti, sfida destino.
All right, he's suitably heroic too. I really like his baritone sound as well. He's answered by Daniele and the chorus. Then we get to track 13, Pezzo d'assieme, Menzogna, or Liar. This is, everybody is in this one, the entire cast. Giorgio is too much of a patriot for his own good, and he really blows it here by coming out of hiding, not able to stand the lies, in quotation marks, that he's hearing from Lambro. Lambro recognizes him as the man who killed Daniele and Marina's father. Because if it wasn't him that killed Daniele and Marina's father, what are we even doing listening to this Italian opera, right? Because it has to be some weird coincidence. Anyway, Marina is protecting her father's killer. Well, what a dilemma this is. Is she going to defend her father's honor? Or is she going to just go off and marry this guy? Anyway, track 14 has the track Ferito inerme. Daniele, her brother, is, needless to say, not pleased about Marina's helping Giorgio. Marina defends herself as Daniele accuses Marina of bringing dishonor to their home by aiding the enemy, while Giorgio remains defiant. Everyone's pretty pissed off as the choral rhythm bounces with aggression. Then we get to track 15. We're still in scene 3. E ben se non ti scossero. I haven't sampled Nicholas Mogg as Daniele yet, and here's an opportunity. Let's do that. All right, some drama happening there. Now, you could hear Daniele's timbre is more like through his nose. It's like nasal, so you can kind of tell the two baritones apart, which is kind of a relief on a recording, really. Here, Daniele is building up tension to kill Giorgio. Lambro then comes in and tells Daniele to take Giorgio prisoner. That's what we heard at the end of that sample. Lambro has a plan, which he will tell Daniele after they've left the house. Track 16, scene 4, is a duet, Ed or ti scolpa. Daniele and Marina sing this, the brother and sister. Daniele and Marina are left alone and duet together with some dark brass underpinning the cold-blooded atmosphere. Let's hear some more Nicholas Mogg as Daniele. At the beginning of her entry, Eleonora Buratto sounded a little bit like Maria Callas in Tosca after she killed Scarpia, you know? Giordano really gives Marina all the Italian emotion here. The woman pleading for understanding in Buratto's tone is perfect. Daniele tells Marina to make up for her transgression. She'll have to watch the execution of the man she's helped. Oh, great. When she's alone, she ends part 1 by saying she'll defy Daniele and save Giorgio's life. Now, I have to say, I think the opera has gone by too fast for Giorgio and Marina to have genuine feelings for each other. But there you are. Anyway, she just met him 10 minutes ago. Anyway, the entire track includes some great brass orchestration, and Buratto's final ringing note is fantastically heroic sounding. Track 17 through 23, part 2 of the opera. We go to track 17, the prelude. There's some instrumental music here, and it starts with strings. It actually sounds pretty classic, with the English horn leading the melody, and oboe comes in to harmonize. Okay, the music picks up in energy after that. It has a quick, galloping, dotted rhythm, and it resolves into a romantic string and wind melody that lead us into the drama of Part 2, which is actually very short. Track 18, Scene 1 in Part 2, Ha sempre l'istessa visione. Freddie de Tommaso has the next two tracks to himself for a prolonged aria where he laments that he'll be killed without meeting Marina again. He has visions of her and laments he'll die without glory. This section presents a big dramatic build-up released in Giorgio's aria in the next track, which is track 19. The aria is called Chissà se un dì, or Who Knows If One Day. Giorgio's aria has him wondering if Marina will think of him in later years and laments that he's leaving her with sad memories because he'll be executed. Anyway, let's hear a bit of this. Yeah, some gorgeous lyrical singing there from Freddie de Tommaso. He shows some appealing dramatic coloring of his tone in this aria too. We heard a bit of that nasal tone in one section of that section. I thought it jumped out, sort of. Impressive heroic high note at the very end too. Track 20 is Scene 2. It's a duet, Stranier, and then Tu, Marina. These titles aren't really titles, they're just what the characters say. The remaining dramatic action of the opera occurs in less than 12 minutes, and it's a lot to cram in. Marina shows up and tries to free Giorgio. She says she feels guilty for signing his death sentence by taking him into her home. Giorgio wants her to tell him he loves her and wastes time as a result. The music is pretty frantic at this point. She indirectly admits she loves him by saying her love is more likely to kill him than any hatred. And this, of course, gives Giorgio a lyrical moment, which we're going to hear right now. All right, I hate to go out on some ringing notes by De Tommaso there, but we have to move on. Track 21, Conobbi appena mia madre. Marina then gets an emotional section. This is the part of the opera where the two reveal their feelings for each other. This always happens in an opera. Let's hear Buratto as Marina in her last big lyrical moment. Okay, so as Marina is emoting, she sings that she basically grew up with sorrows, but seeing Giorgio's face gave her visions of infinite horizons, and then she says she loves him at the end. Very romantic. A gushing, triumphant moment comes for them in duet next, which ends in glowing orchestration. And if only the opera would end there. But no. Track 22. L'ora incalza va via. Well, that might satisfy the romantics in Americans like us, but it's not going to satisfy Italians because everybody has to be dead in order for us to be happy. Anyway, L'ora incalza va via. And then scene 3, Vergine Santa. This is sung by Marina. So Marina and Giorgio have had their moment. Giorgio puts on Marina's clothes and leaves after an addio that will wind up being ironic. Now, he doesn't put on all of her clothes. She just puts on a cloak to disguise himself. This doesn't seem very heroic. He agrees to do this. Anyway, he leaves the stage and there's a gunshot, and Marina tells us they've killed him, so we don't actually see that happen. Lambro comes in and accuses Marina of betraying her country by helping Giorgio escape. He's pretty heartless for a potential suitor, let me tell you that. He stabs her in the chest, and there it is. In a moment, both of our lovers are dead. Track 23, scene 3, Taresta, and then scene 4, Qual Fragor. Daniele, Marina's brother, comes in exclaiming, "My sister, who killed her?" And Lambro says, "She betrayed our country and I killed her. Let heaven be my judge." Harsh, I'd say, but that's how the opera ends, with Daniele kneeling by his sister's body saying, o suora mia, oh my sister." Let's hear the dramatic ending to the opera. It's amazing how this bite-sized opera manages to compress so many of the Italian opera tropes into less than an hour. To be honest, I think this would have worked better as a full opera, with scenes in which Giorgio and Marina could fall in love, but this was an opera for a competition, so the action had to prevail. The pair do get their declaration of love scene right before they're killed at the end of the opera, and it comes across with power and excitement. Now, I have to mention, some of you opera enthusiasts out there might be complaining that there were no death arias. The person dies and they say their last words. But that doesn't happen in Verismo opera. It's more true to life, okay? Anyway, the two leads in the opera, Eleonora Buratto and Freddie de Tommaso, bring this unknown opera to life with some fantastically powerful and dramatic performances, both with gorgeous Italianate tone as well, while Mihai Damian as Lambro, Marina's suitor, and Nicholas Mogg as Daniele, her brother, keep the dramatic tension high with their characterful singing. It's a performance that places the opera in the best possible dramatic light, with Orchestra I Pomeriggi Musicali di Milano and conductor Vincenzo Milletarì keeping the dramatic tension taut throughout the performance. The opera itself, while not a lost classic, is one worthy of the attention of Italian Verismo. It's well-paced, with big climactic payoffs musically as well as dramatically. Try it out. You won't be disappointed, especially if you're a fan of opera.
I'm not a regular listener of opera. I can appreciate it much more as a visual performance, so I can hear the music in the context and try to grasp the story. That said, the libretto and stage directions included in the booklet here were a lot of help. The story is impossibly romantic and tragic.
Well, as always. Right?
That's Italian opera. There are a lot of great musical climaxes and interesting harmony in the instrumental music. Eleonora Buratto soars high and puts out a lot of passion, as does Freddie de Tommaso, sounding like he really believes his sudden romantic proclamations.
Yeah, he's convincing.
Nicholas Mogg and Mihai Damian have weight as the love crushers and come across sternly. It was a lot of fun listening to this, and I'd like to see it in a performance, and I don't think it would need a lot of stage creation to set it convincingly. It's rather simple. You'd need maybe 2 different settings, one for each of the scenes here, and the rest of it would take care of itself. So I'd like to see this in DVD or something like that. It would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool. I could see this, also, because it's so short, it would be programmed with another opera, the way Cavalleria Rusticana is often programmed with the Pagliacci, something like that. They're 2 short operas. You could put this in there too, make it a big evening. All right, so Umberto Giordano's opera Marina sees the light of day again. All right, our contemporary composers this week are all composing for brass. This is an album called Brass for Uncommon Times, and it's performed by an ensemble called Brass for Uncommon Times, and they're conducted by Brian Kaufman. There are soloists too. We have Hiram Diaz on vocals for the last track. Velvet Brown on the tuba plays the tuba concerto that we'll get to soon. Fran Vielma on percussion and Daniel Prim on drum kit end the program as well. This is released on the Naxos label on July 24th. Brass for Uncommon Times brings together 40 top brass and percussion artists to perform 7 powerful 21st century works under the baton of conductor Brian Kaufman. The works confront societal division, racial injustice, gun violence, global crises, and war, while also searching for hope, resilience, and connection. Now, please, before we go on, the hope, resilience, connection make the bigger impact, okay? This isn't really angry music or anything like that. Those are just the themes that set them in motion. All right, track 1, Valerie Coleman, born in 1970. Fanfare for Uncommon Times. This was composed in 2021. Now, of course, we know Aaron Copland's Fanfare for the Common Man, and this kind of takes something out of that. Coleman is a composer, Grammy-nominated flautist, and entrepreneur. I wonder what that means in this context.
I'm not sure.
Is she like founding companies? I don't know. They don't say. Anyway, Fanfare for Uncommon Times was written in response to the overlapping crises of the pandemic and the racial unrest of 2020. And to tell you the truth, I think that deserves a musical composition. It uses the same brass instrumentation as Copland's Fanfare for the Common Man, so it'll sound similar, I guess. At its heart, this fanfare is an invitation for us to come together and find a shared way forward. The piece fades in and starts with a pretty salty harmony once the brass are in. Fanfare figures emerge, and they're pretty appealing. This goes right into the catchiness of Copland's work. Let's hear a bit of this. Yeah, a lot of pepper in that harmony there, too, within those melodies. At the 2-minute mark, the fanfares suddenly stop, and a triangle introduces a new brass theme, which reaches a crescendo and pulls back. A more rhythmic theme appears at 3 minutes and 40 seconds, and yet another catchy theme. Light clanking percussion is heard in the accompaniment. These themes morph into more upbeat and exciting themes until a climax is reached at the end. This is a very appealing work. I would recommend listening to it. Track 2, Satoshi Yagisawa, born in 1975. His work is called Blueshine Emblem and Eternal Elegy and was composed in 2006. Now, Blueshine Emblem and Eternal Elegy explores a world full of conflict between people, nature, and our own inner battles. Themes of loss and struggle return repeatedly, building a sense of discord and sorrow that never fully eases. The piece begins with a lively figure followed by somber chorale-like Wagnerian chords. The piece is pretty active rhythmically. I'm going to go into it a little bit for this sample. This doesn't sound too negative to me. Actually, it sounds pretty exciting. At 1 minute and 40 seconds, low brass is in with a contrasting, slower, and darker sounding theme. The more propulsive rhythm we sampled earlier reemerges by the 3-minute mark, and then peters out with yet another contrasting slow section. A slow, spiritual theme sounds at 3 minutes and 45 seconds, the rhythm picks up again, and by the end it gets out of control, and the piece ends with a nasty-sounding sliding note. Check it out. Tracks 3 through 5, this is really the centerpiece of the album, Barbara York. Now, her years are 1949 to 2020. She's the only deceased composer on the album. This is her concerto for tuba, nicknamed Wars and Rumors of War. Oh, people are just really just a barrel of laughs on this album, aren't they? I'm being ironic, of course. This was composed in 2004 and arranged and published in 2021. Now, Velvet Brown is the tuba player in this concerto. Velvet Brown has 4 solo albums and has been featured on recordings with Howard Johnson and his band Gravity, and with the Cleveland Jazz Orchestra. Barbara York was a Canadian-American composer who is best known for her over 40 works for tuba and euphonium, and that's a way to make a living because tuba and euphonium need works. Her concerto for tuba, Wars and Rumors of War, tells the story of a young soldier called to service, moving from pride and ceremony to reflection and the harsh realities of war. Track 3, the first movement, Allegro Marcato. The first movement evokes the duty and pageantry of military life. A fanfarish opening is heard, and then the tuba is in with a heavily bouncing theme. Okay, so sort of like an empty theme, and purposely so. Just talking about the emptiness of the pageantry of the military. The fanfare eventually comes back and acts as a sort of signal that a new section is starting. The accompaniment and tuba both quieten for the theme heard at 2 minutes and 15 seconds. The tuba has a veiled sound at this point. Its playing is also smoother without the lumbering bounce of the opening. That lumbering theme is back at 4 minutes, however. The quieter theme repeats as well as in a traditional sonata form, and at 5 minutes and 39 seconds the tuba begins a rather poetic cadenza, drawing some emotion out of the phrasing and tone. It reaches a great low note at 6 minutes and 30 seconds before the orchestra comes in to reintroduce the opening marching rhythm. There are some great low honks on the tuba to end the movement. Track 4 is the second movement, Tranquillo. The music here reflects fond memories of home. In fact, the opening has a vaguely Dvorakian, folksy sound to it in the orchestration. The tuba plays a melody quietly along with the orchestra, and the orchestra gets a lot of time to melodize between the tuba's entries, and when the tuba resumes at 2 minutes and 28 seconds, it plays very quietly with an almost muffled tone. Yeah, really pretty brass harmony in that. At 3 minutes and 30 seconds, the tuba starts an arpeggiated waltzing figure as the harmony voices some complaint above it. The harmony straightens out into vibrant nostalgia by the 4 minute and 30 second mark, sounding warm and welcoming. The music settles into fond memories in the last minute and has a calm ending. Track 5, the third movement, Allegro Furioso. The final movement plunges into chaos and combat with militaristic melodies over driving eighth notes. A middle blues section features soulful, Bessie Smith-inspired tuba lines that are supported by a swaggering bass trombone. The rhythm at the beginning is more nervous than furioso, with the tuba loping along to the repeated quarter note chords. There are martial sounds in the orchestra by the 35-second mark. The ensemble puts the mood across via harmony and tone rather than any aggressive rhythm. There's a light menace in the sound, and I liked the slightly swinging theme in the ensemble at 2 minutes and 30 seconds, which the tuba plays heavily over. These would be the Bessie Smith-inspired tuba lines, and of course, we have to hear those. A trumpet picks up the theme, as we heard at the end, to signal the orchestra to take it up, which they do, at 4 minutes and 33 seconds. The lightly menacing quarter note chords are back, with the tuba playing a theme over them. There's an impressively virtuosic sped-up line in the tuba that ends the piece. Track 6, Kataj Copley, or could be pronounced Copley. He's American, born in 1998, and his work is called Beyond, composed in 2018. Beyond is inspired by the victims of gun violence. It reflects courage, grief, and hope in the face of tragedy. All of these works have intriguing openings, and this one starts with long, sustained horn calls, reaching out as the title suggests. In fact, the title Beyond is kind of evocative of what we hear, because there's a kind of reaching out sense to the music. There's some lyrical brass in the first minutes. I'm going to sample that. This gentle ebbing and flowing continues in the accompaniment through to the 2-minute mark, where a few more melodic lines emerge. This all happens as if by magic. It's like these new themes sneak up on you, emerging from the chords rocking back and forth. I especially like the lower brass when they get the lead. There are some powerful tubas pinning down the bass, and a bass drum for punctuation after the 4-minute mark. The work climaxes at the 5-minute and 30-second mark with a big crescendo punctuated by a cymbal crash. From this point on, the work reminds me of the end of a Sibelius symphony, as the brass reach for that final chord, as they do at the end of his 5th symphony. Copley's work does indeed reach that ending, with more ease than Sibelius does. His cadence in that symphony is hard won, and this ending leaves the listener with a satisfied sense of having followed through the structure to the end in this particular work. Track 7, Harrison Collins, born in 1999. He was a young guy. Young Voices, composed in 2018. This is the version for brass and percussion. Young Voices captures the energy and determination of a generation coming of age in a time of division and uncertainty. Youthful energy is the governing principle here. This work starts with vigor and then at 35 seconds suddenly stops and goes into the pianissimo, but the energy builds up again and includes percussion when it does. At 1 minute and 30 seconds, there's a cadence and a new episode. It's energetic, but in a pianissimo range at first, so I'm going to sample a little bit past that. Yeah, and as you heard, this is a very positive sounding work. It's kind of uplifting. A final buildup of energy propels this brief but rather exciting piece to its brassy end. This is worth sampling in full. Track 8, Catalin Peterson, born in the year 2000. This work is called Respire, or Respire could be. In 2022 it was composed, and Peterson is an American composer, cellist, and visual artist who experiments with interdisciplinary arts, often composing pieces inspired by her own visual art. She has synesthesia and draws a strong influence from film scores. Respire explores breathing as a shared yet fragile experience. The piece reflects the struggles of recent years, our environment stifled by pollution, our communities strained by isolation and illness, and our spirits weighted down by exhaustion. Now, this work starts in the depths of the brass and has some mysterious percussive sounds being hung over that sustained bass note. A crescendo on a single chord brings us to a new dynamic, but this work is all sustained tones, some of which form into slowly unfolding melodies. Gorgeous chiming percussive sounds are heard approaching the 2-minute mark, then the bass is back for some more majestic sounds in the rumbling percussion and low brass, as higher brass and percussion form tight harmonies. Okay, so slow-moving harmonies there, sounding really intriguing. The work starts moving into new keys, but progresses slowly. It reaches something majestic briefly just after the 5-minute mark, but as happens often in the work, this peters out. The piece resets around the 6-minute mark to make very quiet, sustained harmony and distant fragments of melodies. At the 7-minute mark, it sounds like there's an organ played by Jordan Prescott. He gets listed along with the rest of Brass for Uncommon Times in the program notes, so he's not listed as a soloist, but it's him. Percussion creates a lot of gentle sounds in the timbral space from the 8th minute on, and there's a big crescendo push forward by the bass drum up to minute 10. I gotta say that bass drum registers really strongly on the recording. It sounds great. Now the music ebbs but resumes and ebbs again until there are only sustained brass chords changing harmony gently at the end. The piece ends on long sustained chords. There's a final trumpet melody to close out the work, and a fading bell sound ends it. Track 9, Felix Mendoza, born in 1983, Guerra de Sesiones, composed in 2007. This features Hiram Diaz on vocals, Fran Vielma on percussion, and Daniel Prim on the drum kit. Mendoza is a Venezuelan-born composer and solo orchestral timpanist based in Germany. He blends rhythmic language rooted in Venezuelan tradition with symphonic-style orchestrations. Guerra de Sesiones brings together African, indigenous, and European influences through lively exchanges in the brass and driving grooves in the percussion. The work celebrates the joyful, life-affirming universality of making music, singing, and dancing together. This has a splashy Hollywood opening with bold brass and lots of cymbal splashes. At the 33-second mark, the piece suddenly takes off with Latin percussion, complete with brass and shouting. And this really grooves, too. The brass don't sound like they quite have the freedom of a jazz big band. They lean towards the careful side, but they do deliver the material with great sound. At the 2-minute and 45-second mark, a brass buildup leads to the same rhythmic explosion that we heard at the opening. Hiram Diaz comes in with vocals, and we've got to hear him. right, so groove and rhythm there. Diaz is accompanied only by percussion throughout this section. A brief percussion solo follows Diaz's vocals, and then at around the 5-minute and 45-second mark, the brass are back in to build up to a big climax, you would think. But no, the music softens and we hear an earlier melody, and this eventually ends in a build to a final big climax, and that's the end of the album. There's 7 works on the album, 6 of them in fairly brief one-movement forms, and all of them appealing on the first listen, especially if you love the timbre produced by brass instruments. The centerpiece of the album was the only non-living composer on the album, Barbara York's Tuba Concerto, and just the fact that it's a tuba concerto was enough to make me want to hear it. I wasn't disappointed by the writing, but I thought it came across as more domesticated than it can actually be. I would have liked to hear more wildness, particularly in the final movement. We get something wilder in Felix Mendoza's album-ending Guerra de Secciones, with its lively percussion section, a performance which achieves a good sense of groove. The album is appealing right from the beginning, with Valerie Coleman's appealing fanfare for Uncommon Times and Satoshi Yagisawa's very interesting Blue Shine Emblem and Eternal Elegy. I really liked everything I heard on this album, and that's due to the expressiveness and versatility of the ensemble Brass for Uncommon Times, conducted by Brian Kaufman. It's good to see ensembles like this in the classical music world. It means more brass works will be written for them, and I, for one, look forward to that.
Yeah, this was an engaging program of modern and contemporary brass music. There's a lot of stylistic variety and many changing moods. Now, let me look back at what I said about each work. The opening Coleman, the fanfare for Uncommon Times, was moody and interesting. The low brass and percussion is very impactful. This recording has great dynamic range, and I knew I was going to be in for a treat with the rest of it. The Yagisawa was kind of interesting right from the beginning.
I liked it.
Kind of chorale start, and then it gets busy, sometimes even humorous, I thought, and it was over just when I thought it was getting to be the most fun, so it made me want to go back and listen to it again. The York Tuba Concerto was a lot of fun, I thought. The first movement goes through a lot of moods, and I like how the tuba gets to go way down in the lower register, and there's a new minor melody at the ending. The second movement had kind of a Spanish-style sound at the opening and a very lyrical melody, a nice warm brass blend throughout. And then the third movement, with that bluesy middle section, was appealing, and the ending was exciting with some really speedy tuba work there and impactful percussion. The Copley or Copley Beyond is rather moody and builds slowly, and the bass drum is really impactful there before a softer section. The Collins has a sense of real youthful excitement and wonder. I thought it was an uplifting piece. Peterson was dramatic, and later on, the organ creates a kind of ominous mood, and sometimes bleak, I thought, but I guess it's supposed to make you think. And the Mendoza was really exciting with the Latin rhythms, percussion, shouts. It was a lot of fun and an excellent finishing piece for this unique program. Fine playing by the Brass for Uncommon Times Ensemble, and hats off to Velvet Brown for her playing on the York Tuba Concerto, showing charm and agility on the biggest of the brass instruments.
And great tone, too.
Yeah. Okay, over on the jazz side of the show, we're going to do some globe-trotting and have a variety of music here. We're going to start out with some flute from Haruna Fukazawa. The title is Plays at the Wrong Time. This is on Orange Paw Records. I think that may be her own label, and it came out July 31st. Haruna Fukazawa is a flutist originally from Tokyo, where she studied classical music at the Musashino Accademia Musicae. She started visiting New York City regularly to study with Frank West, and then decided to move there. She plays in a variety of groups, including Carl Berger's Improvisers Orchestra, which won the Downbeat Critics Poll 6 times, and she's performed at the Blue Note and Carnegie Hall, among other top New York venues. The lineup on the recording: Haruna Fukazawa on flute and alto flute, Steve Wilson on soprano sax and flute, David DeMata on piano, Bill Mooring on bass, and Steve Johns on drums. This was recorded on March 27th, 2025 at Trading 8's recording studio. Recording engineer Chris Sulit, mixing and mastering by Akihiro Nishimura, and the producer is Haruna Fukazawa. Things get started with the title track, Plays at the Wrong Time, a Fukazawa original. Flute and soprano sax make a fun sound combination, getting started with an 8-measure intro. The rhythm section adds some hits. The melody's 32 measures, started by Fukuzawa and then rejoined by Wilson. They split into harmonized lines and exchanges as it goes along, and Fukuzawa is up first for a solo. Let's hear things get started on this recording. Yeah, let's keep on listening to her flute solo on this one. Yeah, very nice. Wilson follows, and then D'Amata on piano. Everyone is relaxed and swinging. Flute and sax trade fours with Johns' drums, and before taking a final round of the melody, there's a new playful section of exchanges between flute and sax. Track 2, When I Fall in Love, the old ballad from Victor Young from 1952, a rubato and dreamy intro with piano and flute. Then Wilson joins on soprano with D'Amata dropping out. Let's hear this one get going. Things pick up with a medium swing for a restart of the melody. It's a playful arrangement, switching between 4/4 and 3/4 and getting harmonized lines. Let's hear some of that as well. Tamada has a piano solo, followed by Fukazawa. They have a playful run through the melody again, with a final section of trilly and happy interplay. Track 3 is Mellow Shadow, a Fukazawa original. This is a minor 12-bar blues tune. It gets going with a bass ostinato from Mooring on the 8-measure intro. Judging from the lower register, I'd guess Fukazawa's on the alto flute here. Wilson joins in on the second round that has a cute piano break before the end, and Fukazawa continues on for a solo. After her solo, Tamada has a piano solo with a classy touch, and then Wilson is up on soprano. Let's check out some of his playing on this tune. Mooring follows on bass with nice melodic ideas and a lazy feel. The final melody section has some fun interplay and an extra measure between choruses. Track 4 is Hot and Spicy, Sometimes Sweet, another Fukazawa original. The drums kick this into the introduction, which is 16 measures of primal improvisations from Fukazawa's flute and Wilson's soprano sax over a straight beat. That groove continues on for the first 16-measure section of the melody, and the second half switches up to swing with weaving lines. Let's hear it. Fukazawa solos first, building up tension nicely and then sliding into the swing section. Wilson's solo is playful, sometimes jumpy and weaving. Let's check out Tamada's piano solo with a light touch on this one. He gets off swinging for the final section. Mooring gets the opening bass figure going again, and they vamp around for Johns to work the drums for a while. The final melody section starts out like the beginning, but switches to a more loping swing for simultaneous improvisations from Fukuzawa and Wilson, and something different for the ending. Track 5, Thelonious Monk's Let's Cool One, a tune he recorded in 1952 and was released in 1956. This is one of Monk's more straightforward and sunny melodies. It's basically an AABA 32-measure tune. Flute and soprano sax over drums give it a playful 8-measure introduction. Fukuzawa gets the melody started, and Wilson is in for harmonization and taking the lead on the start of the B section. The final A section gets held off with some fun trills from both. It's a nice arrangement. Cute. Wilson is up first for a solo, followed by Fukuzawa. Let's hear some of her playing on this one. Mooring has a bass solo next, so let's keep listening to check out some of his playing as well. And the winds do some trading fours with Johns before a final time around the melody. Track 6 is Tommy Wolfe's Spring Can Really Hang You Up the Most, a tune from 1955. Wilson switches to flute for this one with Fukuzawa on the alto flute, and the opening is just the two of them before Mooring adds in his bass. Let's check this out. They continue on some more with harmonized lines until finally piano and drums are in. The harmonized flute lines with trills are very fine. It gets a little caffeine jolt at the end of the melody line, speeding things up into some flute trades and harmonized lines before getting back to the melody. Let's hear some of that as well. The flutes are left on their own for another section with a little cadenza from Wilson before they join up again and work to the final chord. It's a very appealing arrangement. And the recording finishes up with Blue Mitchell's Fungi Mama, a great tune from his 1964 album, The Thing to Do. It's been one of my favorites with Chick Corea on piano. Check that album out if you haven't heard it. This is a rhythm changes tune with a calypso feel. Fukuzawa gives it a solo flute intro. I like the tempo, maybe a hair slower than the original. Wilson is back on soprano, adding harmonized lines on the A sections. They had a little winds-only interlude there into exchanged improvisations and a final arranged line. Damata has a bouncy piano solo, and then Fukuzawa. Let's hear one more solo from her. Wilson returns for some new arranged lines that have breaks for Mooring to fill on bass. The rhythm section vamps around for Johns to work around the drum kit before a final time around the melody, and I like the little surprise modulation and return that they add before the ending. It's a charming recording. Haruna Fukuzawa has a pleasing flute tone and a deeper voice on alto flute on a couple tunes. Her improvised solos are melodic and well-structured. Steve Wilson complements and blends with her nicely, mostly on soprano sax. The melody lines have lots of harmonized and playfully exchanged sections. David D'Amato's piano playing is stylish and sparkly, with some creative solos too, and Bill Mooring on bass and Steve Johns on drums round out the rhythm section, keeping things mostly swinging very nicely. The program is enjoyable, with 3 originals from Fukuzawa, 2 ballad standards, a monk tune, and a Blue Mitchell tune that should be played more often. A lot of care has gone into the arrangements, with new sections, lots of interplay between Fukuzawa and Wilson, and little surprises that will catch your ear even if you know the tunes. The arrangement for 2 flutes and playing on Spring Can Really Hang You Up the Most was particularly enjoyable.
Yeah, I like the way Haruna Fukuzawa shows personality in her phrasing when she solos. She just does a few quirky things that make you understand that this is her that you're hearing, and no one else. It's in the phrasing, sometimes stretching out in unexpected ways. Maybe that's where the album title, Plays at the Wrong Time, comes from. It's kind of an odd album title. The quirky quality arises from surprising phrasing and rhythm changes within the solo, both techniques that Japanese jazz players seem to favor, though in their own individual ways. I also like that she spends a lot of time in the instrument's mid-range. It's a timbre I like, yet most flautists will go straight to the chirpy, bird-like high end. Steve Wilson is an ideal foil for her. His soprano sax tone provides some variety of timbre in the high end, and he solos in a more straightforward manner. He's given a lot of soloing time, too, so Fukuzawa is very generous in giving him that. The rest of the band is solid, with David D'Amato often stabilizing the harmony on piano. The entire album comes across as light and charming, a perfect listen for a summer evening.
Yeah, we usually hear flute doubled by saxophonists, so it's nice to hear a flute feature once in a while.
Yeah.
Okay, next, trumpeter Ryan Carnial and his new recording, Some of the Many Colors. This is a self-release. It came out July 30th. American trumpeter Ryan Carnial was raised in Providence, Rhode Island, began playing trumpet at the age of 12. He received a scholarship to study at the Berklee College of Music. He moved to Europe in 2003 and later completed a master's degree in jazz trumpet at the Maastricht Conservatory in the Netherlands. Some of the big names he's played with are Wolfgang Lackerschmied, David Liebman, Jerry Bergonzi, and Mark Murphy. He is the head of the jazz department at Folkwang University of Arts in Germany, and I see around 8 to 9 recordings that he has been co-leader or sideman on. The lineup here, Ryan Carnial on trumpet, Mike Roelofs on piano, he's a Dutch pianist, Samuel Dusler on drums, he's Swiss and also a Berklee College of Music graduate, Bent Oester on bass, he's Swiss as well, and Lucy Mika on vocals, a young trumpeter and vocalist studying at Folkwang University, I suspect maybe one of Carnial's students. There's no engineering or recording credits available. The recording starts out with a Carnial original, In a Dream. Roelofs gets this started with a dreamy rubato piano opening. It's quite long, so let's take a sample from where he gets it into a 6/8 rhythm, bringing in the drums, bass, and Carnial on the happy 22-measure melody a little ways into the tune. Carnial's off on a solo from there. Let's come back in and hear how he finishes it up. Yeah, nice melodic ideas and connection. Roelofs is next with a piano solo. He's got a great sense of swing and space. Once more through the melody, finishes it up. Track 2 is also a Carnio original, Boondoggle. This has a Latiny straight beat and a minor modal 60s kind of atmosphere. The rhythm section has a long introduction with some improvisations from Roelofs. Let's hear it from the trumpet melody. It's 32 measures in an A-B-A-C shape with switch-ups to swing and back along the way. Carnio solos first, with some half-valve ideas, high reaches, and a bluesy ending. Let's check out Roelofs' solo on this one. Very nice. They vamp around a bit for Dusler to build up some energy on the drums before taking it through the melody again and continuing on with a vamp for some more improvisations from Carnio to a quietening ending. Track 3, Thoughts Without a Thinker. This is a composition by Ryan's saxophonist brother Brendan Carnio. This has a solo bass intro from Worcester with double stops and glisses. That goes on for a minute before piano and drums are in. Again, let's take a sample from the start of the trumpet melody here. It's 32 measures, introspective, and nicely couched in chords in sections by Roelofs. At this tempo, we'll only get part of it in a sample. And let's check out some of Carnio's solo on this one, reaching high and creating some harmonic tension before a soft finish. Roelofs follows on piano, working from chordal ideas at the start and leaving lots of space as he goes, and then letting loose on some bursts of ideas. Carnio is back for the final melody with a soft ending section. Track 4 is also a Carnio original, For All Those Times. It's a very slow and intimate ballad. Carnio has just the right expression here. It sounds like the main melody section is 16 measures. Carnio and Roelofs both have solos, and then Oerster gets a ringing melodic bass solo, so let's check out some of his playing on this one. Carnio is back from there with a final melody section with some lovely chiming piano from Roelofs underneath. Track 5, another Carnio original, Cherry. Carnio starts this out solo and softly, despite the speedy little figures in his lines. Let's hear it get going. And the rhythm section joins in there, but it keeps its lazy rolling quality. The improvisations on this are free-flowing and sometimes rollicking, but I like how everyone is listening and reacting to each other. Let's hear a bit of that as well. Roelofs gets the focus with dashing lines for a section before Carniel is back with a final unadorned melody to finish it up in a stately way. Track 6, Butterfly Friend, from trumpeter Don Cherry, with lyrics by his wife Moki Cherry. This was recorded on Cherry's 1985 album Homeboy Sister Out. Cherry sang it on the original recording, and that had a kind of reggae feel to it. Here, we're treated to the soulful vocals of Luzi Mika. They give it a dreamy opening, so let's start there. And it gets into a nice groove from there. Let's come back in and hear some more of her singing.
Here comes my butterfly friend again. He's moving on. He's got a smile on his face most of the time, especially when he sees those positive signs. Here comes my butterfly friend again. He's moving on. He's got a smile on his face now. He knows I left his house. Talking about my butterfly friend. He is passing again. He's moving on. With a smile on his face all of the time, especially when he sees those positive signs.
Yeah, an appealing voice. Carniel takes a solo from there with a lot of agile and playful lines. Roelofs has a piano solo too, with bluesy touches and lots of feel, and Luzi is back for some scat vocals and a final verse with backing from Carniel. They stretch it out to a faded ending with interplay between voice, trumpet, and piano. Track 7, another Carniel composition, Cherry on Top. Of course, Don Cherry came up and established himself during the free jazz movement. This fades in on some free interaction already in progress. Things get intense and then chill out to a resolved ending. It's less than 2 minutes long, so let's jump in midway and hear how it all lands. And the recording ends up with one final original from Carniel, Crook. Dusler gets this one started on drums, and bass and piano get an infectious ostinato line going that will continue on in the bass in spots under the 32-measure trumpet melody. The rhythmic contrast in the phrases is fun. Rulofs is up for a solo first, mixing funky ideas and darting lines. Let's hear some of his playing. Yeah, let's keep listening to hear one more final sample of Carnio's playing. Yeah, exciting ideas. They bring it down after the trumpet solo for Dusler to get some drumming in before a final melody section. And that's the recording. It was my first time listening to trumpeter Ryan Carnio, and I was impressed by his big warm sound and expressive versatility. He's got a strong internalized concept of the post-bop tradition. You can hear influences of Freddie Hubbard and Woody Shaw and a more free exploratory style from Don Cherry. He's also got a softer, intimate side, really warming up a ballad. The program is largely his original material, plus one tune from his brother and one Don Cherry tune. There's a lot of variety from introspective and calm to swinging sections and Latiny grooves with varied structures to hold your interest. Mike Rulof's piano playing is stellar throughout, catching your ear with great backing ideas and imaginative solos. Bence Erster's bass playing is steady and flexible with a big sound and melodic solo ideas, and Samuel Dusler mixes up the grooves on the drums with a few spots to crank up the energy over vamps and a solo. And the surprise in the program are the soulful vocals of Lucy Mika, breaking up the instrumental program and leaving you wanting to hear more of her singing. It's a self-release that'll probably go under the radar, but it's definitely worth your listening time, and I'm looking forward to hearing more from Ryan Carnio in the future.
Yeah, there's good clear sound on this album. Details of the trumpet tone come out nicely, and the piano is up front in the recording. The album is by turns cheerful and sensitive sounding in the ballads, like For All Those Times. There's even a sense of mystery and trepidation in Thoughts Without a Thinker, a mood I found to be a bit unusual on a jazz album, and welcome for that. There are different approaches to each track, with Cherry and Cherry on Top featuring a descent into relative chaos, while these two tracks frame the rather cheerful and traditional-sounding Butterfly Friend with vocals by Lucy Mika. Ryan Carnio shows himself to be an able trumpeter, producing beautiful tone and appealing sensitivity in the slower tracks, which make up a lot of the middle album, while Mike Rulofs plays like a star on every track, setting the moods and showing some deep American musical vocabulary in his harmony and rhythm. I especially like the two upbeat tracks that began and ended the album, In a Dream and Crook. It's an album with some interesting detours in style and winds up being deeply satisfying as a result.
Yeah, check it out. All right, and for the last recording, get your passport and let's go over to Greece.
Never unhappy to be in Greece, that's for sure.
This is drummer Spiros Panagiotopoulos and his recording Moonshine. This is on Jazz Breeze Records and also Modernistas Records. It came out July 27th. Drummer-composer Spiros Panagiotopoulos was born in Athens. He studied classical percussion at Athens Conservatory, and then he started his professional career performing and recording with Greek singers and composers. He has also performed with the Prague Philharmonic Orchestra, the Russian Philharmonic, and the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra of London. He's played with European and U.S. jazz musicians such as Marcus Stockhausen, Andy Shepard, and Sheila Jordan, and Kevin Mahogany. In 2012, he formed the quintet BFAM, Brothers from Another Mother, which released its debut, Happy Hour, in 2020. He's been teaching at various conservatories, such as Philippos Nakas Conservatory and Athens Conservatory. So the lineup here: Spiros Panagiotopoulos on drums and all original compositions, Phoebe Peklevanidis on piano, George Roulos on bass, Philippos Papas on tenor sax and flute, Dimitris Papadopoulos on trumpet, and George Zoreas on trombone. This was recorded and mixed at Noise King Sound Studios on the 13th and 14th of June 2024 in Kifisia, Greece, by Nick Kolias, produced by Spiros Panagiotopoulos and mastered by John Petrolius. And a 300-copy limited vinyl edition will be shipping of the recording around September 28th. All right, the recording starts out with a tune called I Am Going to Rafa, and things get off to a swinging start. There's an 8-measure intro with the fun horn arranging getting started right away over some syncopated bouncy hits from the rhythm section. It sounds like a variation on rhythm changes in an AABA form, with Pappas' sax leading the melody. Peklevanidis gets the B section on piano, and Pappas is out of the gate with an enthusiastic tenor sax solo. Let's hear this recording get started. He gets to blow on, and is followed by Peklevanidis on piano. Pappas is back to trade eights with Panagiotopoulos, so let's check out some of their exchanges later on. One more time through the melody finishes it up. Track 2 is Afro. Panagiotopoulos gets things started on the drums, working up a groove on the toms. Trilling trumpet and sax work into some simultaneous improvisations. Let's jump in about a half minute in, where Papadopoulos has a little trumpet solo before Pappas leads the melody, which is a 12-bar minor blues with a funky Afro beat. Pappas continues on for a tenor sax solo. Things break into a swing groove on the way, and he gets some trumpet and trombone backing lines. Peclavenides follows on piano, getting some horn backing too, so let's check out some of her playing on this one. Roulos is next on the bass, and Papadopoulos' trumpet again brings in the melody to the end. Track 3 is Hope. This has a clicky groove and a dreamy mood, started by the bass ostinato on the 8-measure intro. Pappas gets the uplifting melody on tenor sax. He's the only horn on this tune. It has a repeating 8-measure section, and after each time there's a 2-beat measure. Then 2 measures transition to once more around the 8-measure pattern with light sax trails and lines. Let's check it out. They go around it again, and Pappas continues on for a solo. Peclavenides follows on piano, and then Roulos follows her on bass. Let's hear him on this one. And getting back to the ostinato to bring Pappas back for once more through the melody to a softening ending with sax improvisations. Track 4, Moonshine, and all the horns are in again on the title track for some swinging. It comes right in with the melody, a 32-measure AABA tune. A little stop time and syncopated trumpet and trombone hits add excitement around Pappas' sax melody, and he continues on for a solo. Peckley Vanitas is next on piano, and Roulos gets a bass solo too. Then Pappas, Peckley Vanitas, and Panagiotopoulos do some trading, so let's check out their exchanges. And back to one final round of the melody from there. Track 5 is Lena's Mood, and Pappas is on flute for this one, no trumpet or trombone. It gets started with flute improvisations over held rubato chords. The 32-measure melody is minor and appealing, with even quarter notes from the rhythm section on the B part. Let's hear it get going. And let's also check out some of Pappas's improvised flute solo on this one. Peckley Vanitas has a chimey piano solo too, before Pappas is back with the melody and continued ideas underneath from Peckley Vanitas. Final phrase repeats lead to some holds like at the beginning, with flute flurries from Pappas. Track 6, My Bro Philip. Pappas starts it out with some intense solo sax. Then there's an 8-measure intro section with trumpet and trombone coming in. The main melody is minor in an AABA 32-measure shape over a Latin feel with some brightening harmonies on the B section. Let's check this one out. Vanitas is off on a swinging solo with change-ups to a Latin feel. Pappas gets an enthusiastic solo too, and then Panagiotopoulos gets a full drum solo, so let's come back in for some of that. And back to the intro and melody from there with a slowed ending. Track 7 is Changes. Things are really swinging on this one with a super fun horn arrangement with hits and syncopated lines backing Pappas' sax melody, and he continues on for a solo. I think you'll guess the changes here. Vanitas follows Pappas with a piano solo, and Roulos gets a bass solo too, and he continues on for some walking to exchange and work with Panagiotopoulos. Let's hear some of that as well. And back to one final time through the melody from there. And the recording finishes up with track 8, I Am Back. This has an amorphous and free start. Panagiotopoulos gets a Latin groove started to bring the horns in on the 32-measure AABA melody that has fun low trombone blasts, and Dimitris Papadopoulos gets to shout out a bit on trumpet on the B sections. Let's hear it. Pappas is up first for a solo, first over just swinging bass and drums, and he takes advantage of the harmonic freedom before Peklivenides returns on piano. Let's hear some of his intense playing here. Peklivenides gets a piano solo too, and Panagiotopoulou gets an extended hard-hitting drum solo. Once more through the melody, finishes up the tune and the recording. Spyros Panagiotopoulou is an exciting drummer who can swing hard, mix up Latin beats, and hold your attention with creative solos. On top of that, Moonshine shows off his composing skills with a variety of moods from old-time swinging rhythm changes, blues, and more modern modal ideas. Most of them are in traditional forms, Hope standing out as unique with an interesting atmosphere and structure. Philippos Pappas is the star of the show for most of the recording, driving most of the melodies and with ample solos on tenor sax, also displaying his flute skills on Lena's Mood. The horn arrangements are fun and help build up excitement on the tunes and solo backing. Phoebe Peklivenides has creative solos throughout on piano in a variety of styles, and George Roulos gets good bass grooves and has some solo spots to shine. My only complaint is that we didn't hear enough of Dimitris Papadopoulos' trumpet playing. He only got a couple short sections of his own before something new came along. And George Zoreas on trombone doesn't get a solo either, but his low lines add a lot of weight to the arrangements. It's a very energetic recording.
Yeah, I feel like if you got those musicians on the album, you got to give them a solo. I agree with what you said about Dimitris Papadopoulos. We just really didn't get to hear him much. Now, if I didn't see Spyros Panagiotopoulou' name as leader on the album, I would have thought this was a Philippos Pappas album.
Yeah.
I thought he set the tone and melodic character of all of the tracks, and he's capable of a lot of moods, from upbeat on tracks like I'm Going to Rafa and Moonshine, to brash and upfront on My Bro Philip. Panagiotopoulou is generous in giving Pappas and Phoebe Peklivenides so much solo time, but he himself takes a monster drum solo on the final track, I Am Back. And after hearing that, there's no doubting it, he is indeed back. After taking a break and just kind of backing everybody else for the rest of the album. Peklivenides, for her part, is rather restrained on the piano, but has some good melodic ideas in her solos. The album is mostly upbeat with some character changes between tracks and lots of swinging. It's enjoyable stuff.
Yeah. I'm always looking for new Greek recordings, so...
Yeah, I'm all about Greece. I really like it. I like the music. I like the country. I like the food.
I belong to the Greek jazz group on Facebook, so I have to get over there more often and check out what's going on.
Oh, really? I
So,
should join that
yeah.
just to be on it. Yeah, that'd be cool.
All right, that's going to wrap things up for episode 270. As always, we want to say thanks to Fast Signs of Staten Island for our glowing neon logo. And we've got a program lined up for next week as well. 271. What's on the classical side of the menu, Mike?
Yeah, we've always got a program, don't we? Anyway, we're going to get away from the Baroque next week and go into the early classical, maybe Galant style with 4 symphonies by Friedrich Schwindel, a composer I've never heard of. Anyway, his years are 1737 to 1786, so he overlaps a bit with Mozart. He's earlier, so we'll find out about him. Then we do Bruce Liu again. We've done him before on his album Waves. Now he has a new album called Lunaris, which seems to have a moonlight theme. That's a lot, or nighttime kind of theme, Chopin nocturnes, that sort of thing. It's a pretty interesting program, a little out there as far as what he's got on this. So that should be an interesting listen. And For the contemporary composer, it's going to be Anna Klein and her clarinet quintet, Strange Loops. That's on an album with a composition by Ruth Gips, a 20th century composer, and Carl Maria von Weber, 2 other clarinet quintets. Weber, of course, living in the classical era, early Romantic era. So those are our 3 records for next week.
All right.
On the classical side.
I had a few more options this week with new releases from Friday. So I sorted through, and we're going to first go over to the UK for bassist Joshua Kavanagh Bierley and his recording The Mild-Mannered and the Mortal. And I was kind of intrigued that it's inspired by a dream that he had about an unreleased Mingus album. And so the music is sort of in that fashion, recorded all in one room with no overdubs or anything. So we'll see what that's all about. That's on the FP record label. Then we're going to come back to the U.S. for Caligram Records, Chad McCulloch and Jeff Bradfield's label, and check out bassist Clark Summers with his new recording Wabash, and Bradfield plays on that as well. And finally, saxophonist Greg Abate, who we've heard before, with his new release on Summit Records, In the Moment, and he's got Bill O'Connell on piano on that one, so I'm sure that's going to be a stellar recording as well.
Yeah, sounds great.
All those recordings, classical and jazz, will be together on our Deezer playlist, and I'll put a link to that on our Facebook page as well. Any final words for this one, Mike?
Yeah, may we all live to be 100 and healthy, like Betsy Jolas.
Music keeps us young.
Yeah.
So everyone out there, keep listening, stay young, and we'll see you again.
Doing what I can.
Next week for episode 271.